So, dear friends, I'm just going to go through the structure of the morning, so we know what we're expecting. And after this introduction, we're going to enjoy a guided meditation together for about 20 minutes. And then I will introduce Rehena, and Rehena will offer us her insights and practice on the topic. And after that, we'd like to invite you to reflect on 2 or 3 questions relating to the topic, and then invite you to share in small groups. And then we'll, oh, excuse me. And then we'll come back together for the opportunity to share some insights and dedicate the merit together. And we will finish by 12 o'clock. So that's the plan for this morning. And again, our topic for this morning is outside in, inside out, growing a beloved community. So let's just take a few moments to find a position where we can be comfortable, relaxed, and yet alert for our 20 minutes of meditation. So if you just like to take a few moments to settle yourself into this present moment in a position that supports your body and your mind to be still and relaxed. And just remembering Ty's invitation to us to enjoy having a half smile on our face as we meditate, to help us relax our body and mind, and to accept when our mind is busy and when our mind is clear and quiet. So in a few moments we can enjoy once more listening to 3 sounds of the bell to begin our guided meditation. Aware of my whole body, I breathe in, easing my body, I breathe out. Aware of body, easing body. Feeling joy to be alive, I breathe in. Feeling happy, I breathe out. Joy to be alive, feeling happy. Recognizing the seed of compassion in me, I breathe in. Touching compassion in me, I breathe out. Seed of compassion, touching compassion. Recognizing the seed of anxiety in me, I breathe in. Calming the seed of anxiety in me, I breathe out. Recognizing anxiety, calming anxiety. recognizing the seed of loneliness in me, I breathe in, embracing my loneliness with tenderness, I breathe out, recognizing loneliness, embracing with tenderness. Aware that I have a sangha around me, I breathe in, feeling embraced by the sangha, I breathe out, aware of sangha, embraced by sangha. Feeling the earth holding me, I breathe in. Feeling the earth accepting and supporting me, I breathe out. Mother Earth holding me, Mother Earth supporting me. aware that the sun, the stars, and the whole cosmos are present in every cell of my body. I breathe in, feeling the whole cosmos smiling with me. I breathe out. Cosmos present in me, smiling. So, dear friends, let's just take a few moments to ease our bodies. If we need to have a stretch or a massage or a drink, just taking our time after that period of still sitting. So, dear friends, while you continue to look after your body, I'd like to introduce Rehena. Uh, Rehena is a dear spiritual friend of mine, and I admire her deep practice in the Plum Village tradition. Um, but Rehena was not born on these shores. She hails from South Africa, um, where she was born and grew up during the apartheid era in KwaZulu-Natal, um, where her indentured ancestors from India, or some of her ancestors, were brought to grow sugarcane. And in that environment, she was immersed in many different spiritual practices: Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and African spirituality. But also, there was a strong engagement in her family and in herself in social and racial justice action. And post the democratic elections in South Africa, Rehena was engaged in many reconstruction and development programs, including the Truth and Reconciliation Council, and continues to engage in various projects, revitalisation and repairing projects in KwaZulu-Natal and Uganda, to help marginalised rural places impacted by climate change. But since 1998, Rehena has been resident in the UK, and she's been practising with the Plum Village tradition since then. And she became an order member of the community of Interbeing in 2016. And her name, her Dharma name in our tradition is True Deep Source. And in this country, 3 years ago, Rehena founded Buddhists Across Traditions, which is a Buddhist-based BIPoC-centred collective looking to serve racial healing, social equity, and justice. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing Rehena share with us her reflections on building beloved communities. That was a term shared by both Martin Luther King and Thich Nhat Hanh, and talking about outside in, inside out. We know Thai's famous calligraphy, "The way out is in," and so I know Rehena will be speaking to this theme as well, about how we build Sangha and community in ourselves as well as externally. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Rehena to offer her about her practice and her thoughts on this important topic. So thank you, Rehena.
So firstly, apologies. I've got up with a slight cold this morning, so I hope I'm audible. If not, let Anna know, and I'm sure I'll raise my volume. I think I want to start by greeting you. Sawubona, namaste, salam alaikum, good morning, aslan. And I want to start by acknowledging that our feet, all our feet, are on the earth today. And particularly this morning, I want to acknowledge my Black and African ancestors today, that all around the world have made and continue to make contributions to all our lives. All our African ancestors benefit us in so many untold ways. This month is Black History Month in the United Kingdom. To me, every day is Black History Month. I also want to welcome you and all the ancestry that you represent. These ancestors belong to us all. And as we sit here today, heeding the call to listen, I would like to acknowledge all the ancestors that have arrived in this space with us. They're just not historical. They are an embodied part of us. And their energy is in their legacy and the community all around us. I want to acknowledge that we go back all the way to the source, to Hilo Mali, aka Lucy. She who is special, that human energy that we all embody, all the way back to Africa. For us all to be in community this morning, to be present here, we all needed to have 12 generations of ancestors over the last 400 years. That is almost 4,000, circa 4,095 ancestors for every single one of us today. How many expressions of collective hope, pain, joy, fears, suffering did they have to undergo for you and I to be here today? They are part of the community we are. They are part of us, and they are here today. And I feel the call today for all of us who are here is to continue what our ancestors could not or were unable to do in both personal and collective healing towards building what we call beloved communities, one where we live in harmony with all beings on this earth. I think I must admit I'm very nervous being here today. This topic is such a huge one, and there's been, as Bari mentioned, such giants of heroes of mine who have talked prolifically about this concept, beloved community. Martin Luther King in his famous I Have a Dream, Thich Nhat Hanh, who talked about building Sangha, and heroes from the African soil that I come from, Mandela, Tutu, Albertina Sisulu, Steve Biko, just to name a few. And here in the United Kingdom, Mary Seacole, Chris Kaba, whose potential still continues with us. And I guess we all have a view of what a beloved community is. We all have a story of what that means. I'm going to share mine, and maybe that will touch some of yours too. But if you'd like, perhaps you might want to, in the chat, drop your definition, your thoughts of what community means to you, or indeed your definition of the beloved community. Feel free to do that. And then we can see at the end whether there's any commonality in the way we view community. I think I'd like to go back a little to something that Vari shared, that I come from South Africa, growing up during the apartheid era, of both African American heritage and of Indian, South Asian, indentured labor, both with a history of oppression. Community in South Africa, the community one belonged to in South Africa, was defined according to a rigid hierarchy of racial categorization, defined by skin color and hair texture. And one's categorization defined how human one was, what type of human species you were. So for me, community building meant something different. It meant two things. It meant overthrowing a community that was created by what I saw as a white oppressive regime to create conditions for another to survive, for a black community to survive and to thrive. So I was involved in activism in South Africa, and some called it terrorism. But alongside this, the energy that drove that activism was two things. One of anger and fear. But the other was also something that we learn about in Buddhist practice, desire. Anger and fear. Anger that I was seen as subhuman, not having access to things that I thought would make me happy. Fear that everything I did would be taken away from me as a result of what I participated in. And thirdly, the desire to be like the group that had access to all the power and resources. And we all, maybe not in racial terms, have this desire to be part of something that can offer us all these opportunities for happiness, these conditions for happiness outside of ourselves. For me, anger allowed me to survive, because when you're walking in anger every single day, knowing you may not come back alive from any action you've taken, anger fueled that hypervigilance to survive. It was the only way one could live with what was being meted out to one. And fear was also something to instill in someone else so they could see the power that you had. So when we toyed in masses to demonstrate, knowing we could be killed at any moment by any bullet or dogs, fear was what we evoked in everyone around us. So this wanting to belong to a group is a dialectic that we all go through. We want to belong to something, which sometimes means giving up aspects of ourselves, our culture, behaving in ways, giving up elements so that we are accepted, that we have access to certain things. And it's a far cry, you may say, what does this all mean for me? You're now in the UK. I think when I came to the UK, racism and othering is submerged here. But the pain and trauma is everywhere. Things are confusing. Here, where commonwealth means the wealth of commoners for some people, and where public schools really mean private schools, but we see the pain of the history, the class system, all of that, the pain here that's being replicated all around the world, and where the ritual and celebration of military power just reinforces what we as Buddhists see, perpetuating the greed, the power, all of those elements that form the basis of all our suffering in Buddhist terms. That is still here. And we see that the wealth, the systems that are all designed to preserve wealth and power, is still present in what we call a democratic system. And yet being here, there was still this notion of being in community, of belonging, to be part of something. And often for me, and I don't know about you, that's one way we earn our way. We earn a right to be in community by working hard, by doing things, by being liked, by creating things that people could like us. So we accepted. And I did the same. Strive to be part of a community at work, acquiring all these gadgets, the latest iPhone, the latest technology, because having all of that would make me part of the community that I was working and belonging to. So there was this constant, again, striving to be part of, giving up elements of myself, and looking for happiness outside of myself. I guess I returned to Buddhism in this period because this pain of striving to belong, to be part of something, and to be part of something that was so far removed from the land that I came from, so far removed from the ancestors that I came from, was corrosive. And I guess it all came to, that practice of just stillness, of being there, of holding, of looking. Mindfulness is a tool that gave me the opportunity, which I didn't really realize until 2020, how much resource, capability, strength, solidity that my practice has offered me in holding pain, in looking at trauma, in looking at elements of myself, to really articulate what community really means to me now. And just as a recap, 2020 was pivotal for us all in many ways. It was the pandemic. For me, it was the murder of George Floyd, the emerging reminders of the stark reality of climate change, which models very much our legacy of greed, of oppression, of power. And I think as there was these demonstrations of outrage all around the world, and the worldwide call for justice, my heart broke. I was so angry, seeing that still here today in the United Kingdom, we have the highest honor awarded by the monarch that depicts a white angel on the neck, the feet of a white angel, on the neck of a black devil. I was enraged at the ignoring of Africa's black voices that are always devalued and disregarded. In many ways, I was back in 1980s South Africa. The lynching of George Floyd just was replaced by images of my own family, my friends, who were detained and tortured and murdered. And the refuge that I thought I would have in Sangha, again, something outside of me, was just two little incidents that I would say broke my heart. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe brokenheartedness is a sign of too tight a heart, of rigidity. But in that period, I leaned into my practice. I think Thai says when we have strong emotions, to take care of it as if it's a crying child. And I think Shantideva says the same thing: when we are overcome with strong emotions, become like wood. And not wood that is non-reactive, but wood that becomes solid in that moment to reflect on what was actually happening around me and within me. Rumi calls this searching for the cure, or searching for the cure of the pain in the pain, which is something that's very easy to ignore. I know my own habit energy is to run away from this pain, to replace it, suppress it, sleep, do something else. So in that time, I took 21 days to be in silence, just walking outside, leaning on the solidity of trees, and leaning into that narrative of my discomfort, but trusting that healing will happen, questioning that pain, because that leaning into that pain tells me my story, It tells me the concepts that I've come up with, the narrative, because that's where the insight comes from leaning deeply into that and being able to hold it. May I have the bell, the sound of the bell, please, Vari? Thich Nhat Hanh uses the phrase "no mud, no lotus" to describe this composting process that accompanies personal transformation. And I think it was in this pivotal moment that I realized what my notion of building community is now. It's a real far cry from how I acted in my childhood days. The intention is still there. The intention to have a beloved, just community, peaceful community is still there. But what I choose to bring to that has changed. And actually, when I reflected on this, it's much closer to how the heroes that I respect, it's closer to their embodied wisdom of what community building is about. In Africa, there is a mystical bird that is the Sankofa, and this bird beak is turned to the back and its feet faces forward, and the beak is reaching to collect an egg from the past, from the back. And it's really a reflection that sometimes we have to go back to reclaim who we are, to move forward. That sometimes that the insights come from looking at what is in the past. And I think that's the realization in that moment that I came to have, is the following. And maybe it was always there. If we desire beloved communities or peaceful communities, it cannot be cultivated without justice. And we cannot have justice without compassion. And without compassion, and we cannot have compassion without love. We cannot have love without understanding. And we can really only truly understand when we can see ourselves, when we can apply our Buddhist practices, giving ourselves generosity, applying mindfulness and our moral precepts to ourselves, to include all elements of ourselves, to bear and transform the pain that's inflicted on us by those that we consider hurtful, and also by those who love us, and to apply the energy of diligence and perseverance to ourselves. The fundamental element of being in community comes from seeing firstly ourselves and applying and creating a sense of loving kindness to me, to my pain, to my hurt, and the compassion to see the suffering and to learn from it, and the joy that comes from, and gratitude from seeing those insights. Because from those insights there is equanimity, a calmness of being able to hold all that emerges. And all of these elements, they're not linear. They're part of things that happen as we touch every situation in every day, in every moment. The ones that create wholesomeness, the conditions for that wholesomeness, as well as those that are unwholesome. Vari said that earlier. Thich Nhat Hanh says the way out is in. So this scene, to heal the world, we need to heal ourselves. We need to go into those deepest, darkest places where we fear, because that's where the light needs to shine. So when my heart broke, it enabled me to look at all those stories that I had created and examining them, my sense, seeing how I was protecting my sense of self, the view I have of myself, my possessions, my political affiliation, my community, my sense of family. That my reaction was seeking a way to endorse or reject a view that I had formed of myself or of the other. And these ways of behaving contribute to both mine and the collective pain. I think we know, or we may have heard about the field of epigenetics that show that our genes contain the energy and the trauma of our ancestors. And for many of us, it's layers and layers of this trauma and pain and joy that gets passed down to us, alongside our learned behaviors, alongside our actions, and the socialing condition that exists all around us. So when we come to apply our practice, it's not to change the past, but to transform this genetic coding, this story, these concepts that appear in our wider society for all those that come after us. And for each one of us, that journey will be fundamentally different. As in this moment, that breath that each one of us is taking is different. When I lean into my discomfort, into my feelings of guilt and shame and anger, this dis-ease offers the opportunity for healing. Seeing these stories over and over again that have been formed, those stories are not my stories. Nothing I do is independent of me. It's formed through concepts. After all, we don't go and invent the wheel. All of us don't invent the wheel. It's been invented for us. These stories, our thoughts and feelings arise because of conditions. And we've learnt them the same way. They offer us some kind of comfort. And there's a little bit of discomfort in letting go of what is so familiar. Letting go of anger for me is difficult. Anger is a comfort. Anger has helped me survive for so many years. Anger has helped me retain my desire for justice. It's very difficult to let it go. But it's when we look at those parts that are the most unwholesome. Those are the places that we need to heal. Because it's letting go of being right, doing the right thing. But actually, it is about the right view is letting go. Until I see who I am, until I know who I am, how will I know what my purpose is? Who am I? That's our journey, our ethical journey of who are we? That connection to ourselves, for me, and maybe for you, reveals this journey inwardly. Because when we go deeper and deeper into ourselves, or certainly for me, I could see how I was connected to everything and everyone around me. Because the more I cling to knowing the way, the more my heart tightens. When I judge others, I inflate my sense of I am the right, I am good and you bad, I am right and you wrong. We all have anger, pain, shame. They arise and they pass. Conditions create them. Certain stories I have and concepts have. You create the conditions for my unhappiness. You are not the cause of my unhappiness. I also recognize that my privileges today result from direct absorption into the system that devalues Black lives. My skin, my activist history, my ancestry, my connection to all my heroes do not immunize me from perpetuating the cycle of oppression. I guess the next part is when we can see ourselves and accept this, is can we actually see the other? Can I look at someone else and see myself? Henry Nouwen, see if I remember it correctly, he said community is a place where the person you least want to live with always lives. The person is always in your community somewhere, and in the eyes of others, you may be the person. So when we see this community, who do we mean? Do we mean everyone? Our beloved community is not homogeneous. When we make assumptions about commonality, I strive to belong to a group. By belonging to this group, by nature, the other group is different, it's bad, it's something. There's some element of one is not like us. Our sense of community often is, we sit in this Buddhist community, I sit in this tradition, mine is good and yours is not. When we presume commonality, we make assumptions about who is present and who is like us. So when I see community, can I see Somalia and Pakistan in the same way that I see suffering in Ukraine? Do I see not just the other, but how the other is formulated by the wider narrative in our society? When I want to be with most like me, I'm often in danger that I'm seeing the other as being outside the group, and I'm dividing the good and the bad. Ralph Steele in a Dharma talk said, can you open the portals of your compassionate heart so that you can look at the other until you see yourself? Can you look at the person that you most vehemently disagree with, and understand how they too are molded by their ancestrally transmitted conditions, the social conditions that they've been part of, and recognize that reacting to this in anger diminishes my own humanity, that I'm responding from a place that diminishes us all when I diminish another. I think Martin Luther King said, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And this is a fundamental concept from the community I come from, the concept of Ubuntu. It's inherent in the greeting I gave you this morning. Sawubona. I see you. I see you, the phenomenal you. I see you, the relative you. I see you and acknowledge your story, your lineage, your humanity. And I see the absolute you, your true nature. You who is the embodiment of an endless stream of life. And when you greet me saying Sikona, you see me. And then we move beyond that. We move to seeing human beings in compassion. See us all made up of discomforts, traumas, shaped by the context. And these two, seeing myself, seeing the other, seeing that we're part of the interconnections between us. Thai calls interbeing, inter-are, and in isiZulu it's called Ubuntu, or in Africa it's called Ubuntu. This interconnection, we recognize that actually we are part of just the energy of life, that we are part and interfused with all of life. I think I'd like to reflect on a poem, and I'm hoping I have it right here in front of me, written to acknowledge this really as we sit here. Walk gently on this earth with purposeful steps. You share this space with 7 billion human beings and countless other precious forms. Just like you, they all want to be happy. Just like you, they all need love. We're not going to survive unless we walk gently on this earth together. Until we touch something in others that feels just like the shards of our own pain, the fluttering warmth of our own joy, until we sew their wounds into our hearts and seal it with our own skin. Just like you. That's who I am. It's a poem by Kaveri Patel. And I think it's this formulation of these insights that now guide my notion of how I want to be in community. Community is a repairing of myself to where I come from, repairing of myself to the other, and repairing of myself to the earth and to life. There is an interdependency between us all. We all shape the humanity we are part of. So my notion of community has moved so far beyond where I've started. It waxes and wanes to include specific groups as well as all life on earth. I am a community in my own right. You are a community in your own right. Millions of bacteria live within you. Your ancestral energy of wholesome and unwholesome qualities live with you. These need to be taken care of. A beloved community is not formed by the eradication of all this difference, but really by each of us claiming our identities, our cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. Without formulating any judgment of mine is better than yours, we are in this together. For me, community building is not an event, it's not an outcome, it's a lifetime process. We are always in community with ourselves, with others, and in the stewardship of life. That is our role. That is being in community. Rushing into activity, creating worry, doesn't change the community. Our intention, the energy we bring into building community is as, if not more important than the outcome. The energy that we invest in this process sets up the foundations of what community will be for those that come in the future. Whether when I walk on the street I'm offering a donation to the homeless or growing vegetables in the garden, I'm in community. And my actions can be either skillful, unskillful, wholesome or unwholesome as I do this. And so I recall my family, my ancestors, my parents. Building and always saying, build community with dignity, using care, using compassion. And Sister Chan Kong calls this building it from the highest purpose, your highest purpose, one of care. And I think that's how I choose to contribute or desire to contribute to the spaces that I am in. Always acting with an open heart, trying to act with an open heart, one that is not constricted with violence, and taking care to examine my intentions. And this is what our practice has brought. My practice has brought to me right now. The ability to look at my intention, to see that I don't perpetuate the oppression and violence used on me in the spaces that I am in, that actually causes greater separation. Shaking out these grains of intention to see whether deep underneath those good actions that are in service of others are hiding some grain of egotistical desire or reinforcing my good person narrative, which becomes then less about the welfare of others and more about the benefits for me. How am I seen? Am I a good person? Look, I am giving this person a donation, this homeless person a donation. It's a validation of myself. But can I sit and discern that when I give that money, whatever it is, to that person who is considered homeless, what is my intention? Do I genuinely see that person? See that person in that moment as shaping me, giving me the opportunity to practice generosity, to expand my view, to see the other, to give freely, without judgment of expecting what or thinking about how will they use that money. It does not matter what they do with it. I don't know the causes and conditions of their life. So right action is acting for me with the right energy, not just doing the right thing, but bringing in the right intention. That is an act of communion. And so I want to live my life remembering the energy that I bring into spaces, how I act in challenging social injustice is built on my intention. So you may ask me, how do you actually do this? And it's very simple, really. Every morning as I walk, I visualize with me all those who represent for me all those energies of loving kindness, compassion and gratitude. And they change on a daily basis. Thai, Martin Luther King, Albertina Sisulu, Leah Tutu. And then I try to live the day with these two imaginary balloons on my shoulder. One for wholesomeness and the other for unwholesomeness. And as I go through my days, on the basis of my actions, which I hope I discern, I add that to one of those two balloons, wholesome or unwholesome. And every night I give insights. I examine what is in those balloons, those insights, and I release those balloons. Those insights, whether it is the wholesome insights or the unwholesome insights, give me an opportunity to examine the conditions that have led me to produce that skillful action or not. And then I am grateful. I have acquired some insight. I have learned, and I let that go. Because how I am in that moment is caused by different conditions. And when I can examine those conditions that have created my wholesome behavior, I can go back and replicate it. And when I can examine and understand what were the conditions that resulted in my unwholesome action, my unskillful action. I can learn from that too. I call this repairing humanism, because it's almost about discovering my human side. And I guess my call for social justice is undimmed by this. But actually it's built on the basis of understanding, not retribution. And for the first time, when I reflect on the truth and reconciliation process, the engagement between victim and perpetrator was unique. And while I went through the process and the mechanics of theoretically designing it, it is now that I feel the embodied wisdom of what he was trying to achieve. It was about an engagement that was about living together. The possibility that we may come from different sides of the history, that we, despite the trauma that we've meted out to one another, it is building a sense of solidarity. Can we live side by side, and can we tell a different narrative? Now that I've seen you as a perpetrator, I am able to take the step with you to the future. It's about possibility, it's about hope, and it's about repair. It's taken me 20 years to get to this position. And 3 years ago, I read a book called A Human Being Died That Night. And it's a story about Eugene de Kock. And he was known as the killing machine in South Africa, engineered millions of people's deaths. But can I see that he's more than that? That he was a product of the system? And can I see, and that's what developing this sense of compassion, that he was more than just a killing machine. Someone loved him. He was part of the system. And when I look at his history of what shaped his life, I can understand. He was a product. He came from concentration camp created for the Boers in the Boer War. And all of this is really important. Alongside, I guess, nourishing ourselves, creating joy in our lives so that we can accept that. Holding all of that, Desmond Tutu is an example of sheer joy, of still enjoying a moment of being alive. And we all know his sense of infectious laugh that he had, despite all of the suffering that he's witnessed to. He still enjoys every single day laughing. And that is a reminder too of building community, building in joy into all our activities. And that culminated, as Vari mentioned, in that element of Buddhists across traditions, which again was launched in October 2020, Black History Month. That was the energy that culminated into Buddhists across tradition, to repair, for social justice, to bring community from the basis of the quality of our heart, to acknowledge that we are alive, not just for ourselves, but for others, to be in service. And this is what we hope to bring in our spaces, is not really how we can grow community, but more importantly, how can we develop and nurture and cultivate giving, loving, hopeful hearts. Not how we can grow community, but how can we grow loving, hopeful hearts. That's the space we want to cultivate at BAT. For me, it's an experiment to practice my learning so that we can shine a light on issues that are not seen, to connect the diaspora across Africa, Europe, and North America, to address the healing that needs to happen here, and to hold all of this in lightness of love. Our life, Thich Nhat Hanh says, has to be our message. I want to continue growing and being in community, constantly being motivated by the intent and energy of my action, hopefully offered in grace, hopefully honoring the ancestors that I come from, who we know, I know, Steve Biko, Mandela, their community building energy is legendary. So I hope for us all, and for me, that we can all contribute to the unfolding of community. And I hope for myself that I can do that with compassion and humility. And when I kneel in isiZulu tradition, in Zulu tradition, kneeling, we kneel when we die, when we pass on, when we continue. We use the phrase, I kneel, they've knelt. And so when I kneel, or I'm planted in the earth, planting is used in Zulu tradition for burial, or my ashes are thrown into water, entered in soil. I hope that the energy that I have created in some little way supports the evolution, the continuation, leaves a tiny little piece of bubble for all the generations that come. I'm recalling a quote by John Lewis, and he said, ours is a struggle of a lifetime, or even many lifetimes. And each one of us, in every generation, must do our part. What will yours be? Thanks for listening. And may we have the sound of a bell, please, Vari.
Thank you, dear Rehena. Dear friends, let's enjoy listening to 3 sounds of the bell to conclude that Dharma talk. Thank you. So thank you, dear Rehena, for offering us a very rich talk, weaving your experience with many Dharma messages for us all. And what we'd like to invite those of you who can stay with us to do now is to reflect on a couple of questions. I'm just going to put them in the chat. So following on from what Rehena said, we thought it would be good to focus in on a couple of areas. So this is the invitation to look at how do you practice being in community with yourself and others? And what is your aspiration and intention in the area of community building? So we're going to suggest that you take the next 5 minutes to consider those questions and maybe have a little comfort break if you need it. And that at 11:25, Anna, who's doing our tech, so thank you very much, Anna, for being there for us on the tech, will pop everyone into small groups of about four to five people, so that I think 4 people, so that we have the opportunity to reflect with a few others around those questions for 15 minutes. And then we'll come back together to have an opportunity to share some of our reflections on those particular themes. So are people clear about that? Happy to take 5 minutes to reflect on these two aspects, and then in 5 minutes to go into small groups.
And then thank you so much for your energy and time. I know we hadn't had much time for questions, but hopefully we have some at the end. I just wanted to say, and maybe I'm going a little off script, but Melissa, if you're around and if you, I know we haven't tested sound, but if you can offer us a song while people are reflecting, that would be lovely. Thank you. If you're still here, Melissa.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Rehena. There was so much in what you said and what you shared, and I'd be really glad to share a song now. I was thinking for quite some time as to the song that I felt would be most appropriate to sing, and if I can draw myself to sing it, then I'd love to sing for you now. We Shall Overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Hey, oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. The truth shall make us free. Truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Thank you, Melissa.
Mm. Thank you, dear Melissa. What a wonderful song. Thank you for being able to offer that to us today. And we now have a chance to share. So I'm going to ask Anna to put us into small groups of about 4 to have an opportunity to reflect on what does this mean for us? How can we look into ourselves? And so hopefully you can still see the questions that we're inviting you to particularly consider. How do you practice being in community with yourself and others? And what's your aspiration and intention in the area of community building?
And if you don't put me in a room, that would be wonderful. Perhaps we can pause the recording here.
No. I hope it was nourishing and helpful to have some time to reflect in a small group and to sit with the experience. Um, our time is slightly changed, but we do have 5 minutes now. If people would like to share, if there was a main insight that they shared from them this morning, that it would be inspiring and supportive to others to hear. So we have a little time for that before Rehena closes with a dedication of the merit and a closing meditation. So please do feel free to put something in the chat if you had an insight that you'd like to share in the chat, or we can maybe have time to hear from one or two people. If you'd like to use the raised hand icon, then it'd be easier to see you. Oh, I've got Jenny putting her hand up, I think. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you, Jenny. Jenny, are you? I think Jenny just disappeared there.
Sorry, Rehena bowing in. I'm happy to stay a few minutes later if it's helpful for those. If there's anyone that has Q&A, questions as well to ask me, I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
I think we lost Jenny there, but if anybody else,
I could speak. Could I just?
Oh, Jenny,
could I just say? I was just going to ask, even though you can't see me, if Una could share the wonderful thing she shared, because I think it's inspiring to everyone. I don't know if Una would be prepared to, but it was really amazing. Jenny bowing out.
All right, Jenny, thank you. Can you all hear me? Yes, yesterday I went to the Heart of London Sangha, and afterwards I joined. Actually, I don't know if Patricia's here. Are you here, Patricia? Because Patricia was with me. Yes, we shared this experience together. Maybe you can join me in it. We went to meet a friend of Patricia's who was joining a protest march outside Parliament Square. As we walked down to Parliament Square, it was a very, very moving all the way. There was all these, it was almost like, sorry to use this term, but it was almost like almost like a marketplace of all the suffering that was happening all over the world. There was the people from China the organ harvesting. There was people from Cameroon who were experiencing some atrocities there. Then there was people from Ukraine. It was all the way lined along the streets down to the Parliament. As we were coming back from being in the Extinction Rebellion thing, there was a big group of people from Ukraine protesting about what was happening with the elections there. And then they were joined by this huge group of people who came down the street from what's happening in Iran. And this group was huge. It was an enormous energy of, very, very angry people. And then they reached the point, we were just at this point in the street where the Ukrainian group and the Iranian group met each other. And the Ukrainian group were chanting "Free Ukraine," and the Iranian group were chanting "Free Iran," and talking about women's rights there. And then they began to chant for each other. It was so moving. The Iranian people started to chant "Free Ukraine," and the Ukrainian people started to chant "Free Iran." And I think further up the street, the other groups who were protesting about other things, we were a little bit further away from them, but there might have been similar things going on. And then in the end, they were all just beginning to chant together, "Free the world from tyrants," that we will, it was like what Melissa was saying, that we can all overcome this together. It was really, I don't know if you have anything to add, Patricia, because you were with me.
Yeah. Thank you, Una. Yes, it was a very, very touching moment. And for me, the touching moment also when was the Iranian demonstrators joined the Ukrainian, or they realized that they were Ukrainian protesters, and they transformed the energy of anger was completely transformed suddenly by reaching out to the other group and clapping for them. So it was really, really moving. So thank you very much for sharing that, Una. And also I take the opportunity for thanking Rehena for very, very moving, touching Dharma talk this morning on the beautiful song from Melissa. Thank you very much.
Yes, I really want to thank you as well, Rehena. I was so moved by that. It was, in fact, that experience that I had at in central London yesterday, I think, almost gave me an idea of what that vision might look like, and for you as well, Melissa, with your song. That I have never seen so many groups gather together, people who were suffering and sharing their experiences.
So, dear friends, thank you for your sharing about that. That sounds a wonderful occasion for us to have a picture of in our minds. I'm aware of the time, and I know we'd like to honour finishing at 12, although as Rehena says, she's happy to stay on if people would like to ask specific questions or continue reflecting. So I'm going to hand to Rehena in a moment so that she can finish our session formally. But I'd just like to say thank you to Anna for offering us technical support throughout this. We can't do it without technical help, so a big wave for Anna, and also a really wonderful wave for Melissa, her really moving, wonderful song. We felt your ancestors and the community of us all in the song, so thank you so much for offering that at such short notice and gathering yourself to do that. And of course, a massive thank you to Rehena for really sharing so deeply with such love and compassion that I think it's touched our hearts today and will leave us with much to consider and to inspire our own practice. So a massive thank you, dear sister Rehena. And all your ancestors and all that you represent. A very precious sister for us all. So handing back to you to finish our session. Thank you.
Rehena bowing in. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your presence, for your energy, and for your commitment. And as I look at your faces of those that remain behind, I greet you and I say, Sawubona, I see you. I will invite the sound, awaken the bell, and invite or dedicate the merit. May we all awaken to understand the roots of suffering and inequities in ourselves and around the world. And may we act to transform this suffering into the action of love, compassion, and understanding. May the energy of openness, care, and commitment we have generated today extend across time and space, encompassing all beings in the past and generations to come. May we all blossom an atom of courage to love without fear, hold the suffering of the world in compassion, and generate the wisdom to see the humanity in the other. May our drop of peace encompass the world so that all beings can live in harmony with one another on this precious earth. Thank you, dear friends. We'll close today, and thank you for your energy, and I wish you and your ancestors well